I see you, Lydia, got CPOM that are related to the sea essences, and that is a first in the pharmacopoeia, in the vibrational medicine pharmacopoeia, making sea essences. And that happened because we were walking on Rathtrevor Beach? No, not Rathtrevor, Parksville, where all the sand dollars come on that nice flat sandy beach in the summer. And we just spent a weekend actually up at Qualicum Creek making flower essences, some of the wildflower essences. And we were in a pretty receptive space, having camped by a river all weekend and lived in the trees, as it were. And we had this student in this Course in Miracles class that we were teaching who had this very, very weird cancer. Usually it only occurred in elderly men, and she was at this point in her 20s. And this cancer was a kind of a skin cancer, but with skin stuff, just as we can absorb anything else through the skin, we can certainly take a disease internally from something that starts out externally, right? So as we were walking along the beach, Michael and I now at this point, Fiona had gone back to graduate school and wasn't really doing very much with the essences. She and I had launched the first 2 kits, and that was it. And we both see this sand dollar, and we both had this immediate notion that we had to make it for Corey. And we didn't know why, we didn't know how, we didn't know anything about it. But the thing was that we kind of turned to each other and went and shared what we had just experienced or listened to or whatever it was. So I went back to the car and I got a jam jar. I began carrying jam jars with me wherever I went. Many of our mother essences were made in jam jars. And, you know, forget the crystal bowls, right? People don't usually take their fine crystal out into nature. And made this essence of sand dollar. And we brought it back to Victoria and said to Corey, hey, you know, we made this essence and we don't know what it's for, but we were both really inspired that, like, you were the inspiration for it. So there's something here for you. Now, at the time, I hadn't done my acupuncture training. I was a shiatsu therapist. I had started Chinese medicine with shiatsu, Japanese massage. And she was one of my clients, as well as being in our Course in Miracles class. So I kind of knew some stuff that was going on for her, and I knew all the different things that she'd done medically. So she was very involved in the Simonton technique, which was the most alternative thing in the mid-'80s that was going on, which was, you know, getting good cells to gobble up bad cells kind of thing. That was and getting very relaxed, the rejuvenation card that you just got. And, but she was also doing all the very bizarre, very invasive treatments like laser surgery that would cut some of the skin away. And then she was doing some other kind of chemistry-based thing, some kind of chemotherapy where she drank, or she was injected with some substance and then had this 7,000 watt light bulb shone on the air. The look on your face. Exactly. I'm out of here. Exactly. So there was like lots of really big stuff going on. But it wasn't until, it was really interesting, it wasn't until she took the sand dollar, and I had no idea what it was for. It was sort of like, okay, well, we've made the sea essence. We think it's a sea essence. You check it out for us, okay? And what happened was, for the first time in her life, she saw a piece of her own involvement in being ill. She remembered being 4 years old and her mother leaving her father in the middle of the night with her 3 little sisters in tow. Her father was an alcoholic. She remembered when she was 9, her mother marrying someone else and having 3 more children. By the time she was 11 or 12, she was the caregiver of all of them. And it wasn't like she felt like a victim, but it was just like she really wanted to be acknowledged. She really wanted to be cared for. She really wanted... So having this very unique, I mean, really bizarre, unique kind of disease that people thought was kind of exciting for her. And it was exciting for her to be rushed to the hospital with the ambulance to get pain management. No, really. No. And I want you to hear, because I so am not the kind of therapist that, like Bernie Siegel, who, you know, says to somebody, when did you decide to die? I mean, that works for Bernie. I could never pull it off. And frankly, I think it would be so disrespectful for me to do that, right? But when the person comes to you and has had a flash of insight, in whatever way it has been triggered, then I think you're onto something. So what you really need to know, though, is that, of course, I've always acknowledged Corey for sort of being the first test case for that essence, and you know, teaching us what it could be used for. But I would tell this story about her, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I had no idea what had happened to her. I did know that she had 1 baby when they moved to Vancouver. I did know that I was at the birth of her 2nd baby in 1987, I think. So I hadn't lost touch with her that much, but I hadn't seen her really recently. And then lo and behold, it was Christmas Eve about 3 years ago, and I'm standing in a checkout line at Thrifty's on my way into town to visit my parents, and who's at the next checkout but Corey? Alive and well, working with other cancer patients, doing great. Now, I would never, ever, ever say that Sand Dollar cured her cancer, but I would certainly say that it was a trigger for her finding a piece of herself that was keeping it going. Okay? Now, the interesting thing about Sand Dollar is that it's a essence for the lung channel, and as Bert will know, being a Chinese doctor, the lung channel receives new energy. Okay, and our lungs receive new energy, transforming energy, taking in the pure chi from heaven, the prana, the chi, the life force, not just oxygen, right? So my belief is that when Corey took that essence, and with its relationship to the lung, she was allowed to go beyond the veil of illusion that she was living in and see something new. She was able to embrace some new energy.